10 of the world's most dangerous criminals are walking free right now, and the FBI is offering millions for their capture. These aren't petty thieves or small-time crooks. These are killers, cartel leaders, and billion-dollar fraudsters who have evaded justice for years. The combined bounties on their heads total over $13 million. Their crimes span every continent, from cryptocurrency scams that robbed millions of investors to cartel violence that has left bodies across international borders. Some have been running for 8 years. Others were added to the list just weeks ago. Welcome to Savage Case Files, where we track the most wanted fugitives on Earth. Among these 10 fugitives is a woman who convinced the world she created the next Bitcoin, then vanished with over $4 billion. There's an MS-13 commander who controls gang operations across Central America through brutal executions. A Sinaloa cartel leader who stepped into power when his predecessors fell, continuing their deadly drug empire. But perhaps most shocking is the mother who murdered her 6-year-old son in Texas, then fled to India, a case that sparked national outrage and international manhunts. Today we reveal the murders, the billion-dollar frauds, the cartel violence, and the international manhunts for America's most wanted. From crypto queens to cartel kings, we expose the fugitives who could be hiding anywhere, in major cities, remote villages, or luxury hideouts funded by their criminal profits. These aren't historical cases or cold files. These criminals are active right now. They're planning, hiding, and in some cases, still committing crimes while evading capture. The FBI believes they could be anywhere in the world, which means they could be in your city right now. Each case represents an ongoing threat to public safety and international security. Some control drug trafficking networks that flood American streets with deadly substances. Others have committed acts so heinous that entire communities live in fear of their return. The question isn't just who these fugitives are, it's where they're hiding and when they'll finally be brought to justice. Case 1. Ruja Ignatova. She called herself the Crypto Queen and convinced millions of people worldwide that she had created the next Bitcoin. Instead, Ruja Ignatova masterminded one of the largest financial frauds in history, stealing over $4 billion before vanishing without a trace. Born in Bulgaria and raised in Germany, Ignatova seemed destined for legitimate success. She earned a PhD in European private law from the University of Constance and later studied at Oxford University. Her impressive credentials landed her a position at the prestigious consulting firm McKinsey & Company, where she advised major corporations on complex financial strategies. But Ignatova had bigger ambitions than corporate consulting. In 2014, she co-founded OneCoin, marketing it as a revolutionary cryptocurrency that would rival Bitcoin. She presented herself as a brilliant entrepreneur who understood blockchain technology better than anyone else in the world. The reality was far different. OneCoin wasn't a cryptocurrency at all. It was an elaborate Ponzi scheme, with no actual blockchain behind it. While Bitcoin and other legitimate cryptocurrencies operate on transparent, decentralized networks, OneCoin existed only in a centralized database that Ignatova controlled completely. Ignatova's marketing strategy was masterful and deceptive. She organized lavish conferences in major cities around the world, presenting herself as a tech visionary in expensive designer clothing. She recruited celebrity endorsers and created a multi-level marketing structure that encouraged investors to recruit friends and family members. The OneCoin website looked professional and sophisticated, complete with fake trading charts and fabricated price increases. Investors believed they were buying into the future of digital currency, not knowing they were funding Ignatova's luxurious lifestyle and criminal enterprise. Between 2014 and 2017, OneCoin attracted over 3 million investors from around the globe. Victims included retirees who invested their life savings, young professionals hoping to get rich quick, and entire families who pooled their resources to buy OneCoin packages. Many borrowed money or sold property to invest more heavily. The scheme was particularly devastating in developing countries, where people saw cryptocurrency as their chance to escape poverty. In Uganda, Kenya, and other African nations, entire communities invested everything they had in OneCoin, believing Ignatova's promises of financial freedom. As the fraud grew larger, Ignatova became increasingly paranoid about law enforcement. She hired expensive lawyers and security consultants, constantly moving between countries to avoid detection. But by early 2017, she knew the walls were closing in. In March 2017, Ignatova made her final public appearance at a OneCoin event in Lisbon, Portugal. She delivered another polished presentation about the future of cryptocurrency, giving no indication that she was about to disappear forever. Just weeks later, Ignatova learned that U.S. authorities were preparing to arrest her. On October 25, 2017, she boarded a flight from Sofia, Bulgaria to Athens, Greece. She has not been seen since. The FBI raided OneCoin offices and arrested several of Ignatova's co-conspirators, but she had vanished completely. Her brother, Konstantin, who helped run the scheme, was arrested and later sentenced to prison. Other OneCoin executives received lengthy sentences, but the mastermind remained free. On June 30, 2022, the FBI added Ruja Ignatova to their 10 Most Wanted list, making her only the 11th woman ever to receive this designation. The Bureau is offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to her arrest. Investigators believe Ignatova may have undergone plastic surgery to change her appearance. She likely has access to millions of dollars in hidden assets, allowing her to live comfortably while in hiding. Intelligence reports suggest she may be in Russia, Eastern Europe, or the Middle East, but her exact location remains unknown. The victims of OneCoin continued to suffer. Many lost their life savings and still struggle financially. Support groups have formed around the world, bringing together people who fell victim to Ignatova's elaborate deception. Ruja Ignatova transformed from a respected academic and consultant into one of the world's most wanted criminals. Her OneCoin fraud didn't just steal money, it destroyed lives, shattered dreams, and left millions of victims questioning their trust in financial innovation. 8 years after her disappearance, the crypto queen remains free, somewhere in the world, living off the billions she stole from innocent investors who believed in her vision of the future. Case 2. Yulan Adone Archikaris. Yulan Adone Archikaris rose through the ranks of one of the world's most violent gangs to become a commander whose orders have resulted in countless executions across Central America. His control over MS-13 operations has turned entire regions into war zones. MS-13, or Mara Salvatrucha, originated in Los Angeles in the 1980s, but has since evolved into a transnational criminal organization with tens of thousands of members. The gang is notorious for its extreme violence, including machete attacks, torture, and ritualistic killings that serve as warnings to rivals and communities. Archikaris emerged as a leader within MS-13's Honduran operations, where the gang has established territorial control over large areas of the country. Under his command, MS-13 cells have engaged in systematic violence that has contributed to Honduras having one of the highest murder rates in the world. His criminal empire extends far beyond simple gang violence. Archikaris has been instrumental in establishing sophisticated drug trafficking networks that move cocaine from South America through Central America and into the United States. These operations generate millions of dollars in revenue that fund the gang's expansion and weapons purchases. The racketeering charges against Archduke reflect the scope of his criminal enterprise. He's accused of running a continuing criminal organization that engages in murder, extortion, drug trafficking, and weapons smuggling. His network operates like a shadow government in areas under MS-13 control. One of the most serious charges involves conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. MS-13, under Archduke leadership, has acquired military-grade weapons, including automatic rifles and explosives, turning gang conflicts into urban warfare that terrorizes civilian populations. The cocaine importation conspiracy charges highlight his role in international drug trafficking. Archduke has allegedly coordinated with Colombian cartels and Mexican trafficking organizations to establish supply chains that flood American cities with illegal drugs. These operations have contributed to the opioid crisis and drug violence in the United States. His methods of maintaining control are particularly brutal. MS-13 members under his command have been responsible for mass killings, including the murder of entire families suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. These executions are often carried out with machetes and other bladed weapons, creating a climate of terror. Archduke has also been linked to the recruitment and exploitation of children as young as 12 years old. These minors are forced to participate in violent crimes, including murder, as part of their initiation into the gang. The psychological trauma inflicted on these young recruits creates a cycle of violence that perpetuates MS-13's influence. The international scope of his operations has made him a priority target for law enforcement agencies across multiple countries. The FBI, DEA, and Central American authorities have coordinated efforts to disrupt his network, but Archduke has proven adept at evading capture. Intelligence reports suggest he moves frequently between safe houses in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, using the gang's extensive network to avoid detection. His ability to blend into local communities and the fear he inspires in potential informants have complicated efforts to locate him. The violence associated with Archduke's operations has contributed to massive migration from Central America to the United States. Families flee their homes to escape MS-13 violence, creating refugee crises that affect multiple countries and strain immigration systems. On November 3, 2021, the FBI added Archduke to their 10 Most Wanted list, recognizing him as one of the most dangerous criminals in the Western Hemisphere. The Bureau is offering a substantial reward for information leading to his capture. His case represents the evolution of street gangs into transnational criminal organizations that threaten regional stability. MS-13, under his leadership, operates more like a terrorist organization than a traditional gang, using extreme violence to control territory and populations. Law enforcement officials believe that capturing Archduke would significantly disrupt MS-13 operations throughout Central America. However, after nearly 4 years on the Most Wanted list, he remains free, continuing to direct violent operations from the shadows. The MS-13 commander's ability to evade justice while maintaining control over a vast criminal empire demonstrates the challenges facing law enforcement in combating transnational organized crime in the 21st century. Case 3. Fausto Isidro Meza Flores. When the old cartel leaders fell to bullets and arrests, Fausto Isidro Meza Flores stepped into the void, transforming himself from a mid-level operator into one of Mexico's most powerful drug lords. His rise to control a major faction of the Sinaloa cartel has flooded American streets with deadly narcotics. Meza Flores emerged during one of the most violent periods in Mexican cartel history. As government forces and rival organizations decimated the leadership of established trafficking groups, he seized the opportunity to build his own criminal empire from the chaos. His faction of the Sinaloa cartel operates with the efficiency of a multinational corporation, moving massive quantities of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana across the U.S.-Mexico border. The organization has established distribution networks in major American cities, from Los Angeles to New York, generating billions in revenue. The cocaine operations alone represent a staggering threat to American communities. Meza Flores has established direct relationships with Colombian suppliers, cutting out middlemen to maximize profits and ensure steady supply. His organization moves tons of pure cocaine monthly, which is then cut and distributed throughout the United States. But cocaine is just one component of his drug empire. The heroin trade under Meza Flores has contributed significantly to America's opioid crisis. His organization produces high-purity heroin in clandestine laboratories, often mixing it with deadly fentanyl to increase potency and addiction potential. The methamphetamine operations represent perhaps the most devastating aspect of his criminal enterprise. Meza Flores controls superlabs capable of producing industrial quantities of crystal methamphetamine, a drug that has destroyed communities across rural America. These facilities operate with sophisticated equipment and chemical expertise that rivals legitimate pharmaceutical companies. His marijuana trafficking continues despite legalization efforts in various states. The organization grows cannabis on massive plantations in Mexico, then smuggles it into states where it remains illegal or where legal markets haven't fully developed. The violence associated with Mez Flores's operations extends far beyond Mexico. His organization has been linked to murders in American cities as they eliminate rivals and enforce territorial control. These killings often involve torture and dismemberment, sending messages to competitors and law enforcement. Maintaining control of such a vast criminal enterprise requires constant violence. Meza Flores has been responsible for ordering the deaths of dozens of rivals, government officials, and anyone who threatens his operations. His sicarios, or hitmen, are known for their brutality and willingness to target entire families. The corruption network supporting his operations spans both sides of the border. Meza Flores has allegedly bribed Mexican military officials, police commanders, and government bureaucrats to protect his trafficking routes. Similar corruption extends into American border communities, where cartel money influences local officials. His recent addition to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list on February 4, 2025, reflects the growing threat his organization poses to American national security. Law enforcement agencies have identified him as a priority target whose capture could significantly disrupt drug trafficking into the United States. Intelligence reports suggest Meza Flores operates from heavily fortified compounds in Sinaloa State, protected by private armies equipped with military-grade weapons. His security forces include former Mexican military personnel and specialized units trained in counter-surveillance and combat operations. The timing of his addition to the Most Wanted list coincides with increased violence along the U.S.-Mexico border as his organization battles rivals for control of lucrative smuggling corridors. These conflicts have resulted in mass casualties and created refugee situations in border communities. American law enforcement faces significant challenges in pursuing Meza Flores due to his location in Mexico and the protection provided by corrupt officials. Extradition efforts are complicated by his wealth, which allows him to hire top legal representation and influence judicial proceedings. The drug trafficking operations under his control have contributed to record overdose deaths in the United States. The combination of fentanyl-laced heroin, high-purity methamphetamine, and other substances has created a public health crisis that claims tens of thousands of American lives annually. Fausto Isidro Meza Flores represents the evolution of Mexican cartels into sophisticated criminal enterprises that pose existential threats to communities on both sides of the border. His ability to maintain power while evading capture demonstrates the ongoing challenges in the war against drugs. Case 4. Ryan James Wedding. Ryan James Wedding turned drug trafficking into a corporate operation, managing a sophisticated cocaine distribution network that stretched from Colombian jungles to North American cities. But when associates crossed him, or threatened his empire, he didn't fire them. He had them killed. Wedding's criminal organization operated with the efficiency and structure of a legitimate multinational business. He established supply chains with Colombian cocaine producers, created distribution networks across North America, and maintained strict quality control over his product. The operation moved hundreds of kilograms of pure cocaine monthly. His method involved using legitimate businesses as fronts for the drug trafficking operation. Wedding and his associates established import-export companies, transportation firms, and other enterprises that provided cover for moving massive quantities of cocaine across international borders. These businesses appeared completely legal to outside observers. The Colombian connection was crucial to Wedding's success. He developed direct relationships with major cocaine producers in South America, eliminating middlemen and ensuring consistent supply. His organization coordinated with Colombian cartels to establish secure transportation routes through Central America and Mexico. Wedding's distribution network extended throughout major North American cities, including Toronto, Vancouver, Los Angeles, and Miami. His organization supplied wholesale quantities of cocaine to local dealers and criminal groups, generating millions of dollars in revenue that was laundered through various financial schemes. But Wedding's true nature emerged when dealing with threats to his operation. Unlike traditional business disputes resolved through negotiation or legal action, Wedding responded to problems with extreme violence. He allegedly ordered multiple contract killings to eliminate rivals, informants, and associates who had become liabilities. The murders attributed to Wedding's organization were not random acts of violence but carefully planned executions designed to send messages to others in the drug trade. His hitmen targeted specific individuals who had crossed the organization, often killing them in public places to maximize the intimidation factor. One particularly brutal aspect of Wedding's operation was his willingness to target family members of those who betrayed him. This strategy created a climate of fear that extended beyond the immediate drug trade, affecting entire communities where his organization operated. The enforcement arm of Wedding's organization operated with military-like precision. His associates used sophisticated weapons, surveillance equipment, and communication systems to carry out assassinations. These weren't street-level drug dealers settling disputes. They were professional killers working for a criminal corporation. Wedding's ability to coordinate such complex operations while avoiding detection demonstrated his intelligence and organizational skills. He maintained operational security through compartmentalization, ensuring that most associates knew only their specific roles in the larger enterprise. The international scope of his operations complicated law enforcement efforts. Wedding's organization operated across multiple jurisdictions, making it difficult for any single agency to develop a complete picture of his activities. Coordination between American, Canadian, and Colombian authorities was essential, but challenging. His downfall began when law enforcement agencies started connecting seemingly unrelated murders to his drug trafficking operation. Investigators discovered that many of the victims had connections to Wedding's cocaine network, either as competitors, informants, or associates who had fallen out of favor. The breakthrough came when authorities intercepted communications between Wedding and his associates discussing both drug shipments and planned killings. These conversations provided direct evidence linking him to both the trafficking operation and the violence used to protect it. On March 6, 2025, the FBI added Ryan James Wedding to their 10 Most Wanted list. The timing suggests that law enforcement has recently gathered significant evidence against him, possibly through informants or intercepted communications. Wedding's case represents the evolution of drug trafficking from street-level dealing to sophisticated international operations that rival legitimate corporations in their complexity and efficiency. His willingness to use extreme violence to protect his business interests demonstrates the deadly stakes involved in modern drug trafficking. The fact that he remains free, despite being on the Most Wanted list for 4 months, suggests he has access to significant resources and sophisticated methods for avoiding detection. His organization likely continues operating even while he evades capture. Ryan James Wedding transformed drug trafficking into a corporate enterprise, but his business model included murder as a standard operating procedure for dealing with competition and internal threats. Case 5. Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano. Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano leads one of the most dangerous criminal organizations to emerge from South America in decades. As a senior leader of Venezuela's Tren de Aragua gang, he has transformed a prison-based group into a transnational terror organization that spreads violence across the Americas. Tren de Aragua originated in Venezuela's Tocoron prison, where inmates created their own criminal government, complete with restaurants, nightclubs, and a zoo. What began as a prison gang evolved under leaders like Mosquera Serrano into an international criminal enterprise that rivals traditional cartels in scope and brutality. The gang's expansion beyond Venezuela's borders has created chaos throughout Latin America. Mosquera Serrano has been instrumental in establishing Tren de Aragua, cells in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, and other countries, bringing Venezuelan-style violence to communities that had never experienced such organized brutality. His role in international cocaine distribution has made him a priority target for American law enforcement. The $3 million reward on his head reflects the serious threat his organization poses to regional stability and U.S. national security interests. This substantial bounty places him among the most wanted criminals in the Western Hemisphere. The cocaine operations under Mosquera Serrano's control operate differently from traditional cartels. Tren de Aragua uses extreme violence and terror tactics to establish dominance in new territories, often targeting civilian populations to create fear and submission. Their methods include public executions, torture, and mass killings designed to intimidate entire communities. What makes Mosquera Serrano particularly dangerous is his organization's connection to terror support activities. Unlike purely profit-driven criminal groups, Tren de Aragua has political objectives tied to Venezuela's authoritarian government. The gang serves as an unofficial enforcement arm for the regime while pursuing its own criminal interests. The coordinated cartel violence attributed to his leadership has destabilized entire regions of South America. Tren de Aragua, under Mosquera Serrano, doesn't just compete with other criminal groups. They systematically eliminate rivals through campaigns of terror that leave hundreds dead and thousands displaced. His organization's large-scale smuggling operations extend far beyond drugs. Tren de Aragua controls human trafficking networks that exploit Venezuelan migrants fleeing their country's economic collapse. These operations generate millions in revenue while causing immense human suffering. The gang's recruitment strategy involves targeting vulnerable Venezuelan migrants in other countries, offering them protection and income in exchange for criminal participation. This approach has allowed Mosquera Serrano to rapidly expand operations throughout Latin America using displaced populations as foot soldiers. Intelligence reports indicate that Tren de Aragua has established cells in major American cities, bringing their violent methods to U.S. soil. The organization's presence in American communities represents a new type of threat that combines traditional organized crime with terrorist tactics. Mosquera Serrano's recent addition to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list on June 24, 2025, suggests that his organization has escalated activities that directly threaten American interests. The timing indicates that law enforcement has identified him as an immediate priority. The challenge of capturing Mosquera Serrano is complicated by Venezuela's political situation. The country's government has historically provided protection to Tren de Aragua leaders, viewing them as useful allies in maintaining control over the population. This protection makes extradition efforts extremely difficult. His organization's use of social media and technology to coordinate operations across multiple countries demonstrates a level of sophistication that rivals state actors. Tren de Aragua, under his leadership, operates more like a terrorist organization than a traditional criminal gang. The violence associated with Mosquera Serrano's operations has contributed to massive refugee flows throughout Latin America. Entire communities have been displaced by Tren de Aragua violence, creating humanitarian crises that affect multiple countries and strain regional resources. Law enforcement agencies throughout the Americas have identified Tren de Aragua as an existential threat to regional security. The organization's combination of criminal enterprise and political objectives makes it uniquely dangerous compared to traditional organized crime groups. Giovanni Vicente Mosquera Serrano represents the evolution of criminal organizations into hybrid entities that combine profit motives with political objectives and terrorist tactics. His gang has become a transnational terror organization that threatens the stability of an entire continent. Case 6. Wilver Villegas Palomino. Wilver Villegas Palomino weaponized drug money to fund revolution, creating a deadly fusion of political terrorism and criminal enterprise that has made him the most wanted fugitive on the FBI's current list, with a $5 million bounty on his head. As a member of Colombia's National Liberation Army, ELN, Villegas Palomino represents a unique threat that combines ideological extremism with massive drug trafficking operations. The ELN is a Marxist guerrilla group that has waged war against the Colombian government for over 5 decades, using kidnapping, bombing, and assassination to advance their revolutionary agenda. Under Villegas Palomino's leadership, the ELN transformed from a politically motivated rebel group into a hybrid organization that uses drug profits to fund terrorist activities. This evolution has made the group more dangerous and financially sustainable than traditional guerrilla movements that rely solely on political support. His narco-trafficking operations center on Colombia's coca-growing regions, where the ELN has established territorial control through violence and intimidation. Villegas Palomino oversees the entire supply chain, from coca cultivation to cocaine processing, generating hundreds of millions of dollars that fund the group's military operations. The cocaine distribution conspiracy charges against him reflect the international scope of his operations. His network moves Colombian cocaine through Central America and Mexico into the United States, where it's distributed in major cities. These operations directly contribute to America's drug crisis while funding anti-government terrorism in Colombia. What makes Villegas Palomino particularly dangerous is his dual role as both drug trafficker and terrorist commander. He uses cocaine profits to purchase sophisticated weapons, including explosives and military-grade equipment that the ELN employs in attacks against Colombian security forces and civilian targets. The ELN, under his influence, has been responsible for numerous terrorist attacks, including car bombings at police stations, assassinations of government officials, and mass kidnappings of civilians. These operations are funded directly by drug trafficking revenues that Villegas Palomino helps generate and manage. His organization's recruitment strategy involves offering young Colombians economic opportunities in coca cultivation and drug trafficking, while indoctrinating them with revolutionary ideology. This approach creates a steady supply of fighters, who are motivated by both financial incentives and political beliefs. The environmental destruction caused by his operations extends beyond the human cost. Coca cultivation under ELN control involves clearing vast areas of Colombian rainforest and using toxic chemicals that contaminate water supplies and destroy ecosystems. These environmental crimes affect entire regions for generations. Villegas Palomino's network has established relationships with other terrorist and criminal organizations throughout Latin America. These alliances allow the ELN to expand their operations beyond Colombia, while sharing resources and expertise with like-minded groups. The $5 million reward for his capture, the highest on the current Most Wanted list, reflects the serious threat he poses to regional stability and American national security. This bounty demonstrates that law enforcement views him as more dangerous than traditional drug traffickers or even cartel leaders. His ability to evade capture for over 2 years, since being added to the list on April 14, 2023, suggests he has access to sophisticated security networks and safe houses throughout Colombia's remote regions. The ELN's territorial control provides him with protection from government forces and rival groups. Intelligence reports indicate that Villegas Palomino operates from jungle strongholds in eastern Colombia, areas where the ELN maintains de facto control over local populations. These regions are difficult for government forces to access and provide ideal conditions for both coca cultivation and guerrilla operations. The challenge of capturing him is complicated by the ELN's political objectives and international support networks. Unlike purely criminal organizations, the group has sympathizers and supporters who view them as freedom fighters rather than terrorists, providing additional layers of protection. His case represents the evolution of terrorist organizations into self-funding criminal enterprises that no longer depend on external support. By combining drug trafficking with revolutionary ideology, Villegas Palomino has created a sustainable model for financing terrorism that threatens regional security. The narco-terrorism model pioneered by leaders like Villegas Palomo has been adopted by other groups throughout Latin America, creating a new category of threat that combines the worst aspects of organized crime and political terrorism. Wilver Villegas Palomino has successfully merged drug trafficking with revolutionary terrorism, creating a hybrid threat that generates massive profits while pursuing violent political objectives that destabilize an entire region. Case 7. Cindy Rodriguez Singh. Mother's ultimate betrayal shocked the nation when Cindy Rodriguez Singh murdered her own 6-year-old son in Texas, then fled to India to escape justice. Her case represents the most heartbreaking entry on the FBI's Most Wanted list, a crime so heinous it defies comprehension. The murder of a child by their own parent violates the most fundamental bonds of human nature. Children trust their mothers completely, depending on them for protection, love, and safety. Rodriguez Singh shattered that sacred trust in the most violent way possible, taking the life of the innocent child she was supposed to protect. The 6-year-old victim had his entire life ahead of him. First days of school, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and all the experiences that make childhood precious. Instead, his life was cut short by the person who should have been his greatest protector and advocate. Details of the actual murder remain sealed to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation, but the charges against Rodriguez Singh paint a clear picture of deliberate, premeditated violence against a defenseless child. The case has drawn national attention precisely because of the victim's age and the perpetrator's relationship to him. The aftermath of the murder revealed the extent of Rodriguez Singh's planning. Rather than remaining to face justice for her actions, she immediately fled the country, suggesting that the killing was not a moment of temporary insanity, but a calculated act followed by a prepared escape plan. Her flight to India demonstrates the international complications that arise in cases involving dual citizenship or family connections abroad. Rodriguez Singh likely has family, financial resources, or other support systems in India that she believed would help her evade American law enforcement. The timing of her addition to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list on July 1, 2025, indicates that this is an active, urgent manhunt. Law enforcement agencies are treating her capture as a high priority, recognizing both the severity of her crime and the public interest in seeing justice served. Child murder cases generate intense public outrage and media attention, creating pressure on law enforcement agencies to solve them quickly. The fact that Rodriguez Singh remains free despite this attention suggests she has access to sophisticated methods of avoiding detection or significant help from others. The international nature of her escape complicates extradition efforts. India has complex legal procedures for returning fugitives to the United States, and these processes can take months or years to complete even when suspects are located. Rodriguez Singh may be exploiting these legal complexities to delay her return to face trial. Her case highlights the challenges law enforcement faces when pursuing fugitives who flee to countries with different legal systems and cultural attitudes toward crime and punishment. What seems like clear-cut murder to American authorities may be viewed differently by foreign legal systems. The psychological profile of someone who murders their own child and then flees the country suggests a level of callousness and self-preservation that makes Rodriguez Singh extremely dangerous. Her willingness to kill her own son indicates she poses a threat to any children she might encounter while in hiding. The impact on the victim's extended family and community cannot be overstated. A 6-year-old's murder affects teachers, classmates, neighbors, and everyone who knew the child. The fact that his own mother committed the crime adds layers of trauma and confusion that will affect the community for years. Law enforcement agencies are likely working with international partners, including Interpol and Indian authorities, to locate Rodriguez Singh. These efforts involve sharing intelligence, monitoring financial transactions, and tracking any communications or movements that might reveal her location. The case serves as a reminder that some of the most dangerous criminals are not gang members or drug dealers, but individuals who commit acts of violence against the most vulnerable members of society. Rodriguez Singh's betrayal of maternal instincts makes her crime particularly shocking. Her eventual capture and prosecution will provide some measure of justice for her victim, but nothing can restore the life of the 6-year-old boy whose trust she violated in the most final way possible. Cindy Rodriguez Singh's case represents the darkest aspects of human nature. A mother who chose to destroy rather than protect the innocent life entrusted to her care. Case 8. British Kumar Chatanbai Patel. A routine day at work became a murder scene when Bhadresh Kumar Chetanbhai Patel turned his family's Maryland donut shop into the site of his wife's brutal killing. 8 years later, he remains one of the FBI's longest-running fugitives, having vanished into an international network that spans 3 countries. The murder occurred at a Dunkin' Donuts franchise in Hanover, Maryland, where Patel and his wife worked together. What should have been an ordinary shift at the family business became the setting for domestic violence that escalated to its most deadly conclusion. The donut shop, typically a place of morning routines and community gathering, was transformed into a crime scene that shocked the local community. Appel's wife was found dead at the restaurant, the victim of a violent attack that investigators determined was committed by her husband. The details of the murder revealed the intensity of whatever conflict had erupted between the couple, turning their workplace into the final battleground of their relationship. The timing and location of the murder suggest it was not a premeditated act, but rather the explosive culmination of domestic tensions that had been building between the couple. However, Patel's immediate flight after the killing indicates he understood the gravity of his actions and the legal consequences he would face. His escape method was both simple and effective. Rather than attempting to flee by car or plane, which would have left electronic records and required identification, Patel chose to escape via the train system. This decision demonstrated either careful planning or quick thinking that allowed him to disappear before law enforcement could establish a perimeter. The train system provided Patel with multiple escape routes and destinations, making it difficult for investigators to predict his movements or destination. Unlike airports with security checkpoints and passenger manifests, train travel offered relative anonymity and flexibility that aided his escape. What makes Patel's case particularly challenging for law enforcement is his international connections. Investigators have determined that he has ties in the United States, Canada, and India, a network that provides him with potential safe houses, financial support, and assistance in avoiding detection across multiple jurisdictions. His connections in India are particularly significant, as the country's large population and complex geography provide numerous places to hide. Additionally, cultural and family networks within Indian communities could provide support systems that help him blend into local populations while avoiding law enforcement. The Canadian connections add another layer of complexity to the manhunt. Canada's proximity to the United States and relatively porous border could have provided Patel with an initial escape route, while the country's diverse immigrant communities might offer places to hide or obtain false documentation. Patel's ability to remain free for over 8 years since being added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list on April 18, 2017, demonstrates either exceptional skill at avoiding detection or access to sophisticated support networks. Most fugitives are captured within months or years of being added to the list. The longevity of his fugitive status suggests that Patel has likely established a new identity and lifestyle in whichever country he's hiding. He may have obtained false documentation, changed his appearance, or integrated into communities where his presence wouldn't attract attention. The international nature of the manhunt requires coordination between American law enforcement and agencies in Canada and India. These efforts involve sharing intelligence, monitoring border crossings, and investigating any reports of sightings or suspicious activity that might indicate Patel's location. His case highlights the challenges of pursuing fugitives who have international connections and the resources to establish new lives in foreign countries. Unlike domestic fugitives, who must constantly move to avoid capture, international fugitives can potentially disappear permanently if they successfully integrate into new communities. The murder at the donut shop represents more than just a single act of domestic violence. It's a reminder of how quickly workplace and family conflicts can escalate to deadly violence. The fact that Patel has evaded justice for 8 years adds insult to the injury suffered by his wife's family and friends. Bhadresh Kumar Chetanbhai Patel transformed a family business into a murder scene, then vanished into an international network that has kept him free for nearly a decade. Case 9. Alejandro Castillo. Alejandro Castillo used his ex-girlfriend's trust against her, luring her to a remote North Carolina location with false pretenses before taking her life. His calculated deception and subsequent 7-year flight to Mexico demonstrate how predators exploit intimate relationships to commit the ultimate betrayal. The relationship between Castillo and his victim had ended, but he maintained contact with her, creating the impression that reconciliation might be possible. This ongoing communication provided him with the opportunity to manipulate her emotions and convince her to meet him at an isolated location where no one could intervene or witness what he planned to do. The false pretenses Castillo used to lure his victim remain part of the ongoing investigation. But the pattern is tragically familiar in domestic violence cases. Abusers often use promises of reconciliation, claims of emergency, or appeals to shared history to convince former partners to meet them in vulnerable situations. The remote location Castillo chose for the meeting was crucial to his plan. By selecting an isolated area away from potential witnesses or help, he ensured that his victim would be completely at his mercy once she arrived. This level of planning indicates premeditation rather than a crime of passion. The murder itself occurred in October 2017, but Castillo wasn't added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list until October 24, 2017, suggesting that law enforcement quickly identified him as the primary suspect. The rapid addition to the Most Wanted list indicates that investigators had strong evidence linking him to the crime. His immediate flight to Mexico after the murder demonstrates that Castillo had prepared an escape plan, possibly including financial resources, transportation arrangements, and contacts who could help him cross the border and establish himself in a foreign country. Mexico's proximity to North Carolina made it an attractive destination for Castillo's escape. The country's large population, diverse geography, and cultural similarities to many American immigrant communities provide numerous opportunities for fugitives to blend in and avoid detection. The 7-year gap since his addition to the Most Wanted list suggests that Castillo has successfully integrated into Mexican society, or has access to networks that help him avoid law enforcement. His ability to remain free for so long indicates either exceptional skill at hiding or significant assistance from others. Cross-border fugitive cases present unique challenges for American law enforcement. While the United States has extradition treaties with Mexico, the process of locating, arresting, and returning fugitives can take years and requires extensive cooperation between agencies in both countries. Castillo's case highlights the particular dangers faced by women who attempt to leave abusive relationships. Statistics show that the period immediately following separation is the most dangerous time for domestic violence victims, as abusers often escalate their behavior when they lose control over their partners. The deceptive nature of Castillo's approach, using false pretenses to lure his victim to an isolated location, represents a common tactic used by domestic abusers who have lost direct access to their victims. These predators exploit their intimate knowledge of their victim's psychology and emotions. His victim's willingness to meet with him, despite their breakup, suggests that she may have hoped for reconciliation or felt obligated to respond to whatever false emergency or pretense he presented. This tragic trust cost her life and allowed Castillo to escape justice. The ongoing manhunt for Castillo involves coordination between the FBI, Mexican law enforcement agencies, and possibly Interpol. These efforts include monitoring border crossings, investigating reported sightings, and tracking any financial or communication activities that might reveal his location. His case serves as a warning about the persistent danger posed by domestic abusers even after relationships end. The fact that Castillo was willing to commit murder rather than accept the end of his relationship demonstrates the extreme lengths to which some abusers will go to maintain control. The 7 years Castillo has spent as a fugitive represent 7 years of denied justice for his victims' family and friends. His continued freedom serves as a constant reminder of their loss and the failure of the justice system to hold him accountable for his actions. Alejandro Castillo exploited his intimate knowledge of his victim to lure her to her death, then disappeared into Mexico, where he has successfully evaded justice for 7 years. Case 10. Omar Alexander Cardenas. In broad daylight, Omar Alexander Cardenas turned a busy Los Angeles street into a war zone, executing a man outside a barber shop while witnesses watched in horror. His brazen public shooting and 5-year flight from justice demonstrate the audacity of criminals who believe they can kill with impunity. The barbershop shooting occurred in a densely populated area of Los Angeles, where people go about their daily routines, getting haircuts, running errands, and conducting business. Cardenas transformed this ordinary community space into a crime scene that traumatized everyone who witnessed the violence. The victim was shot outside the barbershop, suggesting that Cardenas either followed him to the location or knew he would be there. This indicates either stalking behavior or inside knowledge of the victim's routine, pointing to a targeted assassination rather than a random act of violence. The public nature of the shooting reveals Cardenas's complete disregard for innocent bystanders and community safety. Multiple witnesses were present when he opened fire, creating a situation where civilians could have been injured or killed in the crossfire. His willingness to shoot in such circumstances demonstrates extreme recklessness. The broad daylight timing of the attack shows Cardenas's confidence that he could commit murder and escape before law enforcement arrived. This brazenness suggests either desperation or a belief that he had sufficient planning and resources to evade immediate capture. Witnesses to the shooting provided law enforcement with descriptions and potentially identifying information about Cardenas. But their testimony also means that multiple innocent people were traumatized by witnessing a violent death. The psychological impact on these witnesses extends the harm caused by his crime. The gang-style execution method used in the shooting indicates that this was likely connected to organized criminal activity rather than a personal dispute. The public nature of the killing may have been intended to send a message to rivals or associates about the consequences of crossing Cardenas or his organization. Cardenas has been on the run since 2019, demonstrating his ability to evade law enforcement for extended periods. His 5-year flight suggests access to resources, safe houses, or support networks that have helped him avoid capture, despite being added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. The 3-year gap between the shooting in 2019 and his addition to the Most Wanted list on July 20, 2022 indicates that investigators spent considerable time building their case and exhausting other leads before elevating him to this status. This timeline suggests that evidence linking him to the crime is substantial. Los Angeles's large, diverse population provides numerous opportunities for fugitives to blend in and avoid detection. The city's sprawling geography, multiple transportation options, and extensive immigrant communities create ideal conditions for someone trying to establish a new identity. The urban environment where the shooting occurred likely provided Cardenas with multiple escape routes and opportunities to disappear into crowds or traffic. Unlike rural areas where strangers are easily noticed, busy city streets allow criminals to vanish quickly after committing violent acts. His case represents the broader problem of gun violence in American cities, where disputes are increasingly settled through public shootings that endanger entire communities. The barbershop shooting exemplifies how criminal conflicts spill over into civilian spaces. The ongoing manhunt for Cardenas involves analyzing surveillance footage from the area, interviewing witnesses, and tracking any financial or communication activities that might reveal his current location. The public nature of the crime provides investigators with more evidence than typical shootings. His ability to remain free for 5 years while on the FBI's Most Wanted list suggests that Cardenas has either left the Los Angeles area entirely or has access to sophisticated methods of avoiding detection. He may have changed his appearance, obtained false identification, or relocated to another state or country. The barbershop shooting created lasting trauma for the local community, where residents and business owners must live with the memory of witnessing such violence. The fact that Cardenas remains free adds to their sense of vulnerability and injustice. Omar Alexander Cardenas turned a routine day in a Los Angeles neighborhood into a nightmare, executing a man in broad daylight before vanishing into a 5-year flight from justice that continues today. 10 fugitives, 10 ongoing manhunts, 10 reminders that some of the world's most dangerous criminals are walking free among us right now. From billion-dollar crypto fraud to child murder, these cases represent the full spectrum of human evil and the persistent challenge of bringing justice to those who believe they're beyond its reach. The combined rewards for these fugitives total over $13 million, reflecting not just the severity of their crimes, but the urgent threat they continue to pose to public safety. But perhaps most disturbing is how these criminals have adapted to evade modern law enforcement. They exploit international borders, corrupt officials, and sophisticated technology to stay ahead of justice. The personal nature of some crimes makes them even more shocking. Cindy Rodriguez Singhel murdered her own 6-year-old son before fleeing to India. Bhadresh Kumar Patel killed his wife at their family donut shop, then vanished for 8 years. Alejandro Castillo used false promises to lure his ex-girlfriend to her death in a remote location. These cases expose fundamental vulnerabilities in our interconnected world. Criminals with resources can disappear across borders, establish new identities, and continue their activities while law enforcement struggles with jurisdictional limitations and international legal complexities. The timeline of these fugitives reveals the persistence required in modern manhunts. Some have been running for nearly a decade, while others were added to the list just weeks ago. Bhadresh Kumar Patel has evaded capture since 2017. Ruha Ignatova disappeared the same year and remains hidden despite global attention. Meanwhile, Cindy Rodriguez Singh and Giovanni Mosquera Serrano represent fresh threats that law enforcement is actively pursuing. The international scope of these manhunts demonstrates how crime has become globalized. These fugitives operate across continents, exploit multiple legal systems, and use international networks to avoid capture. From Ignatova's European connections to Patel's ties spanning 3 countries, modern criminals think globally, while law enforcement often remains constrained by national boundaries. The human cost extends far beyond the immediate victims. Families of those killed by MS-13 under Achaga Carillas will never see justice. Communities terrorized by Tren de Aragua violence live in constant fear. Millions of OneCoin investors lost their life savings to Ignatova's elaborate deception. The ripple effects of these crimes touch countless lives across multiple countries. Technology has become both a tool for criminals and law enforcement. While fugitives use encrypted communications and digital currencies to hide their activities, investigators employ advanced surveillance, data analysis, and international cooperation to track them down. The cat-and-mouse game between criminals and law enforcement has moved into cyberspace. The rewards offered for these fugitives, ranging from $2,100,000 to $5 million, reflect both the danger they pose and the difficulty of capturing them. Wilver Vigas Palomino's $5 million bounty acknowledges his role as both drug trafficker and terrorist. Giovanni Mosquera Serrano's $3 million reward recognizes the transnational threat posed by Tren de Aragua. Right now, somewhere in the world, these 10 criminals are planning their next moves. They're using false identities, hiding in safe houses, or living openly in countries that won't extradite them. Some may be planning new crimes while others focus solely on avoiding capture. The question isn't just where these fugitives are hiding, it's when they'll finally be brought to justice. History shows that even the most sophisticated criminals eventually make mistakes or are betrayed by associates. But until that happens, they remain free, dangerous, and a constant reminder that justice delayed is justice denied. Which of these fugitives do you think will be captured first? Do you believe someone like Ruha Ignatova, who's been hiding for 8 years, will ever face trial? And most importantly, could any of these dangerous criminals be hiding in your community right now?